Believe myself. Here goes my situation. I married my college sweetheart while studying in Milan, Italy in 1985. We got engaged after 2 years and she moved back to America with me 2 years later. We married 5 years later. She found a good job as an interior designer and has done very well since then. I also hold a good engineering job. We have lived a good life. We have one boy 14 and one girl 11. All was going great. Built a house, vacation to Milan every year, and her parents spend 1 month with us during holidays for the last 15 years. About 5 years ago, I didn't like the fact that she was going to business meetings with a male coworker which they had to drive 5 to 6 hours together once a month, and sometimes come home at 1 in the morning. Due to the long drive, etc., I brought up my feelings, and I ended up looking like an insecure fool, and so I convinced myself I was being silly. It is in fact her job, etc. 2 years ago, I saw some text messages on her phone while she was baking with her mother. They were visiting on holidays. I was in the basement. The text wrote, "Baby, can't wait for the holidays to end. Maybe we can have a business trip together if the boss stops being so damn cheap. Sorry for swearing." That's exactly what it said. I wrote back saying, "Don't worry, I'm sure it will happen soon." He never replied. And I felt horrible and ashamed. I was thinking, maybe it is just the business trip and my mind was playing games on me. Then I was thinking how much I screwed up. If she ever found out I responded to her message that was innocent, etc., but deep inside I had a gut feeling. Nothing became of the message. We used to be a weekend family. Every weekend we would go to the lake with the family. I would fish with my son, and we had a great time. The last year or so, she was giving me hints that the kids are getting a little older, and maybe are a little bored with the weekend activities, etc., and she wouldn't mind alone time as it would be good for me also. I can hang with my friends a bit more, and she can shop with her friends, etc. I looked at it that maybe she was right. Actually even looked forward to it. My gut feeling always was way back in my mind, but never ever allowed it to be an issue, just thought it was my insecurities with having a gorgeous wife. Well, last December I let my guilt aside one day and decided to check her email account and phone records, honestly to give myself relief, thinking that I was 99% sure there was nothing going on, and it was in my head. I'm sure you guessed it, full-blown pa. For how long I have no clue, but probably from back then when they started the business trips. Email 1 out of over 300. Kim, sweetie, I can't stop thinking of you. Last night I was on my wife and felt like screaming your name. See you, Sarah, love you. She replies, "Baby, don't tell me about times with your wife, although I love you thinking of me. Said we will have all afternoon, and I will take care of my baby." I freaked out, was so hurt and outraged, didn't know what to do, but reading this channel for so long, being suspicious, I got myself under control and decided not to say anything. Divorce was in my mind with no return, and I wanted to do it right. I never ever cheated on this woman. We still talk for hours and laugh, watch movies, sleeping together 3 to 5 times a week, etc. I have a great relationship with my father-in-law, drink together on weekends when he's here, laugh, dirty jokes, etc. I decided to confront him on all of this in 10 days when he will arrive. I explained the situation, but not the texts. He gets up and starts screaming, "How dare you accuse my baby," and so on. I said, "Please keep it down. I don't want them to hear. I trust you," and wanted to talk about it. He told me off and runs to his wife upstairs. Our son-in-law is telling me my daughter is a B. I want out of here now. I stayed downstairs. She comes running down, asking what the hell this is about, etc. I asked her, "Maybe you should tell us," and she starts screaming, "How dare you? Just because you are insecure doesn't give you the right to tell my father lies." All of a sudden I'm in my house with 3 people who look at me as some evil intruder. I get up and leave with the car. The kids were at a Christmas sleepover. I come home 2 hours later reading a note on the door, "Get a room. You need help." No one answers phone, etc. Sorry for such a long story. Next day I call her, explaining how sorry I am, and I know I am insecure and I will make an appointment with a counselor, etc. She accepts. But father and mother-in-law don't want any part of me. They are sleeping in the basement, and I get the silent treatment for 10 days in my own house. The last email I read Tuesday, stayed at X Hotel, room number 214 on Saturday afternoon is booked. She also explained the whole scenario with him, and he's telling her to be more careful and to give me more comfort that it's in my mind, etc. I'm now thinking that maybe she won't go through with it since I'm suspicious, etc. But she writes back the next day, telling him all okay for Saturday, but it will have to be for an hour or so, because she will leave her mother at the mall. I immediately call my brother who lives 10 hours away. He sells electronic devices, etc., and he is also outraged. He tells me he will set up cameras, etc. in the room. I'm like, whoa. This is maybe too far, etc. He says, "No way, don't let this be, get away with this crap." I didn't like the fact that some people might be staying in the room before my wife, and we will record. He explains that he will set it to start recording at check-in time setting. This all seems like a detective movie, but I am so outraged I'm willing to go with it. At home all is well with wife. She cuddled against me to watch a movie, felt like holding my enemy, but I played along. My brother arrives on Thursday, and that room is not vacant until Monday. He tells me we're breaking in through the balcony. I wanted no part of it, so he says he will handle it, etc. This is all making me nervous. It's totally out of my realm. Brother goes and does it by himself. He is a former detective. I just was too embarrassed to tell him before, until I gathered all the info. Well, fast forward, my porn queen. Not exactly the clearest video, but good enough for even a nun to know. What a porn star. Bravo. What a show. Should have seen her. Bravo. I go home. God knows how I didn't burst. I had a mission and didn't want to ruin it in the end. Father and mother-in-law in the kitchen, barely a hello, and my porn queen kissed me and asked if I wanted to take pictures around the tree, etc. I mentioned that I found a video of all of us in Milan from way back and maybe it would be fun to all watch. My porn star is all smiles and says, "Come on, Mom, Dad, it will be fun." They reluctantly came to the family room. I had the DVD in and the remote in my pocket. I hit play. The show begins. I go downstairs, take my car and my trunk full of things and head to my parents'. Father-in-law calls me 20 minutes later 3 times. I don't answer. I left her a message that my attorney will contact her first business day in January. I don't know why, all this hurt, all this anger, somehow deep inside I was smiling. I couldn't believe myself. All this was during the last holidays. I am filed for divorce. She feels we should try and work it out, etc. That she was out of character, etc. I'm not having it. Maybe I am not strong enough, I don't know, but just those images make me feel like cringing even if she comes 100 feet from me. She was and is a great mother, and so the children I feel are better off with her. The home is mine, and when the kids move out, so does she. I have my kids every other weekend and 2 times during weekdays. I bought a condo within 10 minutes just for this purpose. She calls me at least 2 times a day since then, always using the children as an excuse, then trying to turn the conversation about us. I tell her every time, there is no us, and as soon as the conversation has nothing to do with the children, there is no conversation. All these years I made myself believe I was insecure. I now believe I was just listening to my gut, so I feel very confident. My life will be and is great. She knows it and it is killing her. I don't get pleasure out of her pain, but no one sympathized with me all this time. Her father and mother call me 2 to 4 times a month, just trying to get us back together. I told them both, they are grandparents to my children, always will be, he will be my friend, but their daughter and me will never ever be one again. Her parents now only call her just to speak to the kids. So sad, we had it all, and actually when I say I'm happy, it's happy to overcome all this for me, but definitely not happy how my life turned out. I will be strong and date in the future, but for now I am enjoying teaching me more, and excited to find out how the new me will lead me. I was actually thinking, people who financially can't do what I have done must be living in true horror. I wish them power and strength. To be honest, when I use the word happy, I guess it's not happy what I'm going through. Maybe relief would be a better word. I am relieved that I feel stronger, that I have confidence again. Sad thing is, I still love that woman, but that woman is dead in my mind. So basically, I love the past about that woman. I would have probably tried to work things out, but in no way after seeing the video, and the time with her father and me got into it. I feel she should have sat down with me and explained all at that exact moment, but she probably felt there is no way I have evidence and she used it against me. The jealousy and pain at that moment became anger and payback for me. To be honest, it did me good, because I was hurting and doubting myself for the longest time. That moment I felt closure. Her best friend ran into me about 3 months ago. She explained that she loves my ex, but she had nothing against me and she actually told my ex I had a right. She also claims she had no clue about all of this. Doesn't matter if she did or didn't for me. She also told me how devastated my ex was, and she wants nothing more than to get me back, and that she is constantly asking if I'm seeing someone, etc. I get a high knowing she is feeling this way, but the real me feels that's immature to think that way. Yes, I just want my payback, which I truly feel is wrong, but that's what I feel, really can't control it. Her porn co-star even had the guts to call me. I'm sure she put him up to it, and explained that it was all on him, and that he was always the initiator, etc. That my ex always talked about me, and maybe he took advantage of her insecurities, etc. Basically that she always was crazy about me. I told him, why don't you go tell that to your wife? He says to leave his wife out of it. I told him exact words, idiot. I gave your wife the video in person about 3 weeks ago. I hope you guys enjoy watching porn together. He hung up the phone. They are now divorced, and I don't know anything what became of him. His ex is actually a lovely woman, and we had lunch about 5 times since then, but nothing like that. I think we helped each other immensely. So, all in all, happy is not what happened to me. As far as the in-laws, yes, they did apologize, hundreds of times. This Christmas they are staying with me. I was very surprised that they asked. I guess they're not ready to fix their relationship with their daughter just yet, or maybe a last shot for them to try to convince me. Time will tell. What really eats me inside is the other women. I gave her a video of her husband and my wife. They separated immediately and now are divorced. I am thinking back now, and I feel a bit guilty. Why should she have that image stuck in her mind? Maybe I could have just shown her some texts, etc. I would hate to think they could have saved their marriage, and the video, etc. was what ruined it for her. When we did meet, she told me numerous times that she never suspected anything. I am now thinking out of payback to him. I got her also. So much stuff. I wanted to mention, I wish I had my brother watch the video and just told me yes, it's what you thought. For anyone thinking about doing such a thing, the visual aspect will do you more harm, at least it did me, than is needed. I have those images over and over, it's horrible. If I saw a video of my ex sleeping together last night, I would honestly care less, and it wouldn't faze me one bit. But at that time, she was my wife. I wish I never ever had to see that my brother saying they did it would have been enough. 1. I didn't show them the text at the time father-in-law blew up, because I just knew she was going to say it was just a joke, all of us in the office joke. Stop being so paranoid, etc. or something like that, and reading all the stuff and excuses with text messages on here. I felt this time I was going to play stupid and really catch her red-handed. Trust me, I wanted so bad at the time, but I just felt all or nothing this time, if that makes sense. 2. When I say packed trunk, I don't mean a trunk as in a luggage trunk, I meant my car trunk, files for my work, clothes for at least a week, basic necessary belongings that I would need immediately. The big stuff came after my brother and some friends of mine went there and did me the favor. 3. They have a company picnic every year. I have attended 7 times if I remember correct. I know who he is, what he looks like, just don't really know him personally. Just a handshake, nice to see you again, etc. The secretary at the company is a friend of mine, male. Even went fishing with him over 10 times through the years. I simply asked him for this guy's home number. He gave it to me. Now if he suspected or not I didn't know, and simply didn't care. He gave me the number with no questions asked. My comment, wow, is all I can say. Doubt I would have done the video thing. Wouldn't want to see my wife like that even if I already knew via the text. I doubt you would have done it if her parents didn't react that way and then she tried to play you like an idiot. Hopefully I won't ever have to make that decision. Story 2. So, my husband and I have a 3-year-old and 1-month-old twins. We are currently living in a very small house, so we've been looking to buy something bigger so our kids can have more space. We finally found the right house and we put in an offer, which the owner accepted. We will be moving into the house in a few weeks. This is a $200,000 house and is way nicer than any house we have ever had, so I'd like to keep it that way. I am just a little concerned about my in-laws' dogs. My father-in-law and brother-in-law each have a dog, and they are both fairly large dogs. They like to take them with them pretty much everywhere they go. So, anytime they come over to visit, their dogs are with them. They let them run into our house, sit on our furniture, a brand new leather couch, etc. I wasn't too thrilled about this, but I didn't say anything to them or my husband because I figured my husband would just get defensive and I didn't feel like arguing. However, when we move into our new house, I won't be able to allow it. I went ahead and brought it up to my husband today, just so we would be on the same page. I told him that I don't want to risk them scratching up the hardwood floors or damaging something. It's too nice of a house. Plus, I was a bit bothered by the fact that they seem to think it's okay to just let their dogs run inside without even asking if it's okay. If I was a guest at someone's house, I don't see myself doing that. It just seems a bit rude. We do have 3 cats and a small Chihuahua mix, so maybe they just assumed that because we have pets, we would be okay with it. But I still set rules even for my own pets. Like, no animals are allowed in the bedrooms. I do not allow my dog to lay on my new couches. He has to lay in his dog bed when he's inside. He also goes in his crate at night because he can't be trusted not to make a mess if he's left unsupervised. My husband tried to take the blame and say it was his fault that their dogs came inside because he didn't think I had a problem with it. So that's why he allowed it. But as far as I know, his brother never even asked if the dogs could come in. They just assumed it would be fine. That's the part that seems a bit rude to me. I don't have a problem with his family visiting, but they need to respect our home. My husband reluctantly agreed to not letting the dogs come inside of our new house, but then came back and said, well, what about the garage? Can they come in the garage? I'm just trying to figure out something so I don't have to tell them to just not come over if they have their dogs. But I never said they can't come over if they have their dogs. All I'm saying is they need to be left outside if they're with them. If they don't want to leave them outside when they visit, they need to leave them at home. Having them go into the garage isn't as big of a deal to me as having them in other parts of the house, but ideally, I'd prefer for them to not come in any part of the house, period. I don't want to have to worry about them getting into something in the garage, plus it's more pet hair for me to clean up. I vacuum daily as it is. I'm just wondering, should I compromise and say they can come in the garage? I just honestly don't see why they can't leave the dogs at their house if they're going to visit, or at least keep them outside. Well, as far as the dogs, they have never bitten anyone and they don't really bark much. Although one of them does make me a bit nervous around my 3-year-old. I just don't want my new house to get damaged, and considering their size, I'm afraid they could easily scratch or damage things without even trying to. And the fact that they don't even ask if their dogs can come inside just kind of rubs me the wrong way. The reason I brought up the pet hair is because pet hair actually drives me nuts. Because I do have 3 cats, I find myself vacuuming every day and I get so sick of it. My only point was that more animals in the house equals more pet hair, and I have enough hair to clean up as it is. Even if they leave the dogs outside, I'd feel better if they kept them tied to something while they visited, or they could leave them in the car with the windows cracked open. They don't ever do this though, they always let them run free. And I have no idea what my new neighbors will be like, but if they don't have pets, they might not be too crazy about having strange dogs running around in their yard. My husband just looks at it like, oh well, if the neighbors complain, what are they going to do? But I don't think it works that way. I'm pretty sure there are laws about that kind of thing. My husband's dad and 19-year-old brother moved here from another state a few years ago to be closer to my husband. They live about 10 to 15 minutes away from us. They both have jobs. They live on a campground in a small camper trailer. Since they live on a campground, they don't have a physical address. So, basically, they've been using our address to have their mail packages sent to. Our address is even on his brother's driver's license because he needed a physical address in order to get his license. At one point, my husband's sister and her boyfriend moved in with his dad, so we were getting all of their mail and packages too. On a regular basis, his sister and her boyfriend would be coming by our house to pick up their stuff, and she was constantly texting me asking if her packages had arrived at my house yet. They moved back to their hometown several months ago, so we aren't dealing with that anymore. But my husband's dad and brother are still here and they're still using our address. I told my husband back when this first started happening that I didn't like it, but he just kept trying to convince me that it wasn't a big deal. Rather than pushing the issue, I pretty much decided to just tolerate it, and I've been putting up with it for a couple years now. Well, we've been looking to get a new house and we just recently went under contract. I brought up the issue to my husband again yesterday and told him that once we move into our new house, I don't want his family using our new address. I told him they need to figure something else out. Again, he tries to convince me that it's not a big deal. He asks me why I have such an issue with this and why it bothers me. I tell him that I don't like having stacks of their mail piled up at my house. It's just more clutter and more mail for me to have to sort through. He says, we're going to have a bigger house and we'll have more room so it won't be as cluttered as it is now. He then starts offering solutions saying he will bring in the mail so I don't have to deal with it. But aside from the clutter issue, I told him that I just don't want people using my address that don't live in my home. It's as simple as that. So, then he says, so it's just the principle of it then. You just want it to be only your address because it's your house. Like he's trying to make me feel like there's something wrong with that, or like I'm just being selfish or something. I told him they need to get a PO box, but he starts coming up with excuses like, but you can't get packages delivered to a PO box. You can only get pieces of mail. How is my dad going to get his bag of medicine? His dad has his medication delivered to our house and then picks it up. So, I did 5 minutes of research online and found out that you can get something called a private mailbox at the Up Store, which will not only allow your packages and mail to be delivered there, but you will be provided with a physical address. You have to pay a monthly fee, but they both have jobs, so it shouldn't be an issue. So, I told my husband about this, and there wasn't really much he could say because he couldn't use the medication thing as an excuse anymore, so he finally agreed that he would talk to his dad about it. I just don't appreciate how he made me feel about the whole thing. If you were in my situation, would you want someone else's mail being sent to your house all the time? It would be one thing if it was temporary until they got their own address, but I can't deal with it if it's going to be a permanent thing. I've already been dealing with it for way longer than I wanted to. He may not think it's a big deal, but it is to me. So, I feel like instead of minimizing the issue, he should have just said, okay, I'm not bothered by this, but you obviously are, so don't worry about it. I'll do something about it. It's like when it comes to his family, he just can't say no. I feel like I put up with a lot that I'm not necessarily thrilled about just for his sake, and I don't ask for a lot. Do you think I'm asking for anything unreasonable? I understand that my husband doesn't have a problem with this, but I've expressed to him a long time ago that I do. He doesn't have to agree with it. Just like if my family was doing something that he had a major problem with, I would do something about it, whether I personally felt the same way as him or not. But with him, it's like instead of putting my wishes first, he wants to try to make everyone happy. But you can't always make everyone happy. I feel that because I'm his wife, he should care about my happiness first and foremost. Even if he brings the mail in and sorts it so that I don't have to deal with it, it doesn't completely fix the issue. I just don't think it's a good idea to have people using your address when they don't live in your home. And some of the stories that people have shared on this post are examples of why it's not a good idea. No, this isn't the most important issue that we are dealing with, and I never said it was. That doesn't change the fact that it is an issue though. Obviously, it's not for my husband, but it is for me. I also don't think he gets that letting stuff like this continue on for so long makes me feel resentful toward his family. There was already some resentment toward his dad because when I first started dating my husband, his dad was living with him because he had recently gone through a divorce and was paying so much in child support that he supposedly couldn't afford a place to live. I didn't have a problem with it, but my husband and I had discussed that when we got married, we needed our own space and that his dad would have to figure something else out. However, as our wedding date got closer and closer, his dad still had not made any plans to move out. I kept bringing it up to my husband, asking him when he was going to talk to him about it. He just kept making up excuses, saying that he didn't have to bring it up. He said that his dad was aware that we were about to get married and would want our own space, and that he would move out on his own. He stuck with this story literally all the way up until the day we got married. A week after our wedding, we come back from our honeymoon and his dad is still there, just like I knew he would be. So, he finally brings it up to him after we get back from our honeymoon, and he ended up moving out shortly after that. My husband let it go on and kept putting it off until I was literally about to go nuts just because he didn't want to tell his dad to leave. His family takes advantage of him, although he will never see it that way. Just like he doesn't think they're taking advantage of us when it comes to the mail thing. But what other reason would they want to use our address instead of going to the app store and getting their own mailbox or PO box? The only reason I can think of is that if they use ours, it's free. It took me a matter of minutes to go online and find that there are other options. I can't help but to think that they could have done the same thing if they were truly interested in finding another option. I think the only reason they haven't explored these other options is because they are perfectly content with the way things are. When I first met my husband, his dad was actually living with him. His dad had recently divorced and was paying so much in child support and had so much debt, he couldn't afford to support himself. So, my husband let him stay with him, rent-free. His utilities were also free. When I met my husband, we had agreed that by the time we got married, his dad would have to make other arrangements and find someone else to stay with, because it was important that we spend that alone time together as a newly married couple. As the wedding date got closer and closer, I kept asking him if he had talked to his dad about the whole situation, and he just kept putting it off. He would say I don't have to talk to him. He will leave on his own. It drove me nuts. Days before our wedding, his dad was still there and he hadn't talked to him yet. I decided to marry him anyway. He waits until we get back from our honeymoon a week later to finally pull his dad aside and tell him that he's going to have to go somewhere else. A few weeks after that, his dad left. So, he really didn't do what we agreed to. We agreed his dad would be gone by our wedding date, but he actually wasn't gone until weeks after our wedding. I felt like he was putting his dad's happiness before mine, and I still feel that way. He was so scared to risk offending his dad that he strung me along, assuring me that his dad would leave on his own. But I think he knew his dad wasn't going to leave on his own. I think he was just trying to put off having that conversation with him for as long as possible. Meanwhile, every day that he put it off, I was stressing myself out about it and going crazy. Another example. His mom is an alcoholic and she's came close to losing her house because she chooses to not work, and she seems to make poor decisions with the money she does have. Years ago, I think it was right after we had gotten married, she called my husband and said she was 2 months behind on her mortgage and she needed $1,000 or she was going to lose her house. I expressed to my husband that I didn't think it was a good idea. It would knock out a huge chunk of our savings account and I worried that she would get herself into the same situation later and would ask us for money again. I felt that throwing money at her was just enabling her and not really helping her solve her problems. He completely disregarded my feelings on this and gave his mom the money. Here's another. I'm a pretty introverted person, and so is my family. I didn't grow up having a lot of house guests, let alone house guests that stay for days at a time. I do not like staying overnight at other people's houses, and I don't like having overnight house guests at my house. It makes me very uncomfortable and gives me great anxiety. I can handle socializing for a bit, but at the end of the day, I need my space to go to so I can be alone and recharge. On many occasions, my husband has coerced me into either staying at his friends, family members' houses or letting his family, friends sleep at our house. One time when he was working night shift, his cousin stayed overnight at our house while he was at work. It was just me and his cousin alone, so it was really awkward and uncomfortable for me. I think I reluctantly agreed at first, because it was only going to be for one night. But when I realized I was going to be here with him alone, I expressed that I didn't like the idea. My husband had a total temper tantrum, stormed out of the room and slammed the door. I've told him I don't mind paying for his family to get a hotel room when they visit. He can spend all day long with them, but I don't think it's too much to ask that at nighttime, I get to have some space. I think that since we both live here, we should both be in agreement about this type of thing when it comes to who stays in our house. I guess he's more worried about offending someone than making me extremely uncomfortable and anxious for days. Last example. When he and I met, he had recently gotten a divorce. Him and his ex were married for 4 years, no kids. He told me when we got together that she was living in another state and that he stopped talking to her and had no clue about what was going on in her life since they divorced. I just kept feeling like he wasn't being completely honest with me about that. So, I decided to log into his email account and I found a lot of lengthy emails that they'd been sending back and forth. She was telling him all about her life and her new husband, and he was telling her all about me. There was nothing dirty in the emails, but they were talking like they were best friends. This shocked me, seeing as how my husband has always talked negatively to me about his ex, and seeing as how he claimed to have stopped communicating with her. I felt like I had been deceived. I confronted him about it and all he could do was turn it around on me and ask me why I was looking in his email. Yes, I get that it was probably an invasion of his privacy to do that, but I did it because I felt he was hiding something, and my suspicions were right. They had no kids together, so I felt they had no reason to talk anymore. She was married again. I felt she needed to move on with her life and let him move on with his. I asked him to tell her that he wasn't interested in socializing with her anymore, but yet it still didn't immediately stop. Again, I felt he was putting someone else's feelings, his ex of all people, before mine. I think that whenever a compromise can be made, it's ideal. That way, both people can be happy. But sometimes, if it's a really important issue to one person, the other person has to be willing to sacrifice in order to make the other happy. Do you think it sounds like he doesn't put me first? How can I have a conversation with him about this without him feeling like I'm attacking him? Like comment, OP, I'm sorry, but all your examples seem like nitpicking and looking for reasons to be upset to me. I think your situation would lend itself well to some marriage counseling. I think there are some issues you just need to suck up and be more generous. Your husband appears to be a pleaser and doesn't like to say no to people. You are a strong introvert, so I can totally understand you being uncomfortable with people staying at your house. Maybe the deal to be struck is they can stay with you, but the rule is your husband has to be there to entertain the guests so you can go to a quiet room and recharge.